It's a busy show. Hi,
It is.
Mazz and Murray alongside. Hi, fellers.
Yellow.
You.
But we'll start with this. What I feel, Mazz, is a crystallizing direction for the Patriots this offseason. That is Phil Perry again on early edition last night on NBC Sports Boston saying he hasn't had a single person across the league tell him this is a good free agent class. And you want to spend all that money, well, good luck. Who are you going to spend it on? And we've heard this other places as well. For whatever reason, and there are reasons. I mean, we know what they are. Teams have figured out the cap. The money keeps going up. The cap's fake to begin with, et cetera, et cetera. There's just fewer and fewer good impact players available in free agency, and that is certainly the case this year. And we've heard for months, and it's crystallizing as well, that this isn't the sexiest draft either.
Correct.
Not very beefy at the top of the draft in terms of impact players, which is what is a layman's way of saying edge players, playmakers, outside players, speed players. So, Mazz, let me tell you, or let me ask you, if you've got to build out your roster, or you've got money to spend, resources to spend, and you go into a offseason where both the draft and free agency is lacking in outside impact kind of players.
Yep.
What do?
You look for opportunities to get impact players if you can get them via trade. You look for that first, but otherwise, you try not to F up too bad.
Otherwise, it's boring linemen on both sides of the ball.
Murray's got the right answer. You go inside.
Yep.
You draft linemen. That's what you do.
Don't you think he probably would have done that anyway?
It's a good question. So you draft and sign at the line of scrimmage, and I think more than ever it's crystallizing that's what they're going to do. Would they do that even in a talent-rich draft and free agency? Good question. Go ahead.
My answer is yes. I look again, and I know it's not sexy. I'm not telling you that it'll get people excited because I don't think it will. But the fact of the matter is you have to build the foundation before you can put the house on it. Nobody's ever walked into a house and said, wow, look at this foundation. It doesn't happen, but you can't have it if you don't put the pieces in place underneath it.
They probably would, but I wish that there was like a few, you got to take this guy type of guys, especially in the draft, because then I think we'd get a clearer picture of who's actually running the show. If there was like a Brock Bowers type at tight end that felt like it was going to go maybe at 4th overall, well, then would maybe see, because maybe Rabel and his side of the building want to go inside and get something a little more steady on the defensive or offensive side of the ball. But then we'd see if ownership and Elliott Wolf are like, oh, no. This is about Drake May now. We're going to try to help Drake May and get him talent. And so we're going to take the playmaker. If there was a player like that, I think we'd have a clearer picture of who the hell's actually running the show. I'd love that, actually.
It would also give them an opportunity to trade. It would open, again, because if there's talent in the draft and there's a guy that you don't necessarily need, i.e. a quarterback, you might be in a spot where you can say, okay, we'll drop, 4 spots and you're going to give us a second and 2/3 or whatever. So, and maybe get another first out of it. And they could certainly use that. So, look, from their standpoint, it sucks.
Absolutely. That's the overall takeaway. You have this money to spend. I feel like they're ready to spend it finally. You have all these needs. You once again have a high draft position, and it's a year where there's not really guys up there. Like that you would envision as a fan or as an owner. Bankable, marketable playmakers, guys that score touchdowns, guys that impact the quarterback, guys that impact the passing game. That's what, you desperately need that, along with everything else. But when you have those kind of resources, that's generally what you're going for. And here's a year without it. Now, I agree with you, Mazz, but Vrabel's instinct and inclination would be to build from the trenches. But if this were last year and you've got Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors and those guys up there, you're telling me that he would still draft Will Campbell or Mason Garrett?
Mason
Graham.
Mason Graham?
I mean, he'd want to, but again, I don't know.
Right? But now I think it's to me, it's crystallizing what's going on here. So fans, people, if you're among those that are, salivating over these receivers or these skill position players or Travis Hunter or whatever the case may be, I felt this for a while. It's just not what they're going to do. And here's the latest Chad Graff, The Athletic headline. What I'm hearing at the NFL Combine, Patriots prioritizing the trenches not T. Higgins. He writes, recent reports that the Cincinnati Bengals plan to use a franchise tag on Higgins or could perhaps trade him won't change the Patriots' plans. New England's blueprint for the offseason does not include pursuing Higgins, the number one free agent to be on our top 150 big board. I'll stop right there. If that's the case, that the blueprint does not include pursuing Higgins, how do you feel about that?
So I don't love it because, again, I wouldn't eliminate anything if I were them. Like, what? So you're going to go entirely in the trenches? Is that the idea? You're not going to have any skill players at all? Like, that feels to me excessive. And the other thing is, if the overall free agent class isn't that deep, then what are you going to spend, big time money on mediocre trench guys? You follow me?
Yes.
Like, you can't blow it all in one place if all the players are mediocre. So there's nothing wrong with going after some sort of big ticket item if the other players in the field aren't, in the class, the pool of free agents are not that good.
So look, this approach in the trenches makes sense. I think it was predictable to some degree, but I still don't fully trust them in terms of their spending and the money and all of that. They've got to earn back that trust. So are they not going after Higgins because they want to build from the inside out and that's the right way to do it? Or, as Chad Graff writes, some decision makers around the league are skeptical Higgins would be worth the roughly $30 million per season he could command in free agency. So they're not going after him because they looked at the price tag and said, that's too much.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, in that case, I don't give him a break. You would take him if the price was right, but you're not taking him because of price. I mean, I get this is why I think they're going where they're going, but that's not the right reason in their current state.
No, that's the wrong reason. And again, because you know what's going to happen the next time they go look for a receiver? The price is going to be 35. Just like it was 25 a year ago, and it goes to 30 now. And I'm not telling you Calvin Ridley is T. Higgins. But this is why you are better off paying early and filling it earlier, because the number's going to go up every year. It never goes down.
So the contract stuff, I'm just not, I'm not willing to give them that deference. In terms of philosophy, Graff writes, as the Patriots are reshaped in Mike Vrabel's likeness, they want to prioritize building through the offensive and defensive lines and will make that goal number one this offseason. So expect their biggest free agent signings to come in the trenches, not at wide receiver. Stop again. Do we want this team reshaped in Mike Vrabel's likeness?
Not entirely.
Sort of a heady, tough, smart, versatile linebacker? Is that the likeness you want in the modern NFL?
No, I'll say this.
At least it's I'm sorry to cut you off. At least it's an identity. They've been searching for one for like 4 years now. I'll take it.
This is true.
So I'll say it's a good place to start, is how I would put it. It's a good way to stay in games and compete and start, a good place to start while you are trying to get back to championship status or championship level. Call it whatever you want. But I don't want to end up there. I don't want to be Tennessee. I'll tell you that right now. So, again, he did a good job there. They became a competitive team. At the end of the day, what were they really? They were a team that made one AFC championship game, and then beyond that, they were an early exit playoff team, is what they were. That's not good enough.
So I know Mike's smarter than this, and I don't think he's going to go fully in this direction we're talking about. But he's more in that direction than the tight pants offensive coordinator with the route trees and the passing game and all of this. Is Mike Vrabel going to be, we're going to run the ball and stop the run? If he is, I don't think that works either. And I don't think he fully is. But this is just, first offseason, this is where they're going. How do you feel about it? 617-779-0985. Graff writes, again in The Athletic, in free agency, the Patriots are planning to focus on the offensive and defensive lines. While that could give them more flexibility with the fourth pick in the draft, going after an offensive or defensive lineman there remains the likeliest option as well. Free agent dollars, top of the draft. O-line, D-line, O-line, D-line, O-line, D-line. Your thoughts?
So, again, not sexy. I wouldn't spend all of my resources there. I don't have a problem with them necessarily spending most of their resources there. But again, I think it's a good place to start. Look, You know how I feel about the offensive line. It sucked so bad last year and the year before. They couldn't do anything. It didn't matter who they had at the other spots. So you've got to get some stability on those two lines. Otherwise, there's not going to be any point in watching them every weekend. It'll be that bad again. So they have to start there. I get it. But that doesn't mean they have to do everything there.
As Graff writes, it's all part of Vrabel's plan to overhaul the team in the trenches, and there's a lot of work to be done. The offensive line was probably the NFL's worst a year ago. The team struggled on the defensive line as well, finishing last in the league in sacks, so there's a long way to go. A couple of names to monitor as the Patriots plan to make their defensive line in free agency. Josh Sweat and Milton Williams, two members of that Eagles defensive line that dominated in the Super Bowl. Offensively, expect them to sign multiple starting offensive linemen as they're targeting a guard and a tackle. The bulk of their free agent spending will likely come in those two areas. With the Patriots being out on T. Higgins and the remaining group of free agent wide receivers not looking overly impressive, New England is going to feel out the trade market for a receiver, according to a league source. With a slew of high-end receivers already available and others potentially joining them, the Patriots are using this week at the Combine to plant seeds on a potential trade. Cooper Kupp and Deebo Samuel, for example, are already public with their desire to move elsewhere. Samuel or Cooper Kupp?
Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp.
Why?
I think, I'm worried about I think Deebo Samuel's kind of cashed.
Yeah, I'm with Mazz on this. We talked about this a few weeks ago. I just don't know if there's much tread left on those tires. They like wore him down to a nub. They had him as a return man, doing a million different things there. I just don't think he's the same player.
He was borderline useless last year. He really was. He was borderline useless. Now, again, maybe some of that is because he was getting attention and they went to the guy, their third guy, Jawan Jennings, had a bigger year. And Ayuk got hurt early, so maybe Samuel got more attention. Like, I'm not, I've been breaking down Niners film to tell you exactly what happened there. But he has been slipping for a few years.
And his injuries these last few years are all the soft tissue kind, where it's like, oh, well, it's like another hamstring that he's going to be out like 5 weeks for. It's just one of those things over and over and over again. So Cooper Kupp over Samuel for me.
Mike, just quickly, remember the year where Samuel had the monster year and they were running him out of the backfield?
Yeah,
and
of course.
Okay, I don't think he's been the same player since that.
And that might have been 5 seasons ago now.
Yeah, I think he took such a beating that year that he was never the same.
And wasn't that actually an issue?
Yes.
Like on his end?
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember the reporting there on that. Like he felt they were beating him into the ground.
Yes, and I feel like he never really was the same. I'm going to see if I can find, like, in the stats, what it says in terms of how his career has progressed. But I think that was 2021. 77 catches, 1,400 yards. He hasn't hit 900 yards receiving since. So to me, it's like he ran the ball that year 60 times, 59 times.
Finally, on the draft, the Patriots are willing to hear other teams' offers for the number 4 pick, but much like last year, they're not particularly motivated to move back. In other words, it would take a big offer for them to trade back. The most likely scenario that could lead to a substantial offer is one of the top quarterbacks, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, falling out of the top 3 and a team being impressed enough by them to move up. But outside of that, the Patriots will be content to stay at 4 with the hope that an offensive or defensive lineman proves through the pre-draft process that he's worthy of a pick that high. The likeliest options at this point are defensive tackle Mason Graham, Michigan, and LSU offensive lineman Will Campbell. That's assuming Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter go in the top 3. This is just sort of like something that occurred to me a month ago. They're just looking at the consensus top players in the draft are Carter and Hunter. They're gone. You're sitting at 4. Someone reaches for a quarterback. You're going to be sitting there, and it's going to be the top O-lineman on the draft and the top D lineman on the draft. And the top offensive lineman on the draft is hardly a sure thing because of his arm size. And that, to me, said, okay, Big Ten interior defensive lineman feels like them, and this is what they're doing, and that's where they're going to be. And I think it's going to come down. That's what it is. It's going to come down to Will Campbell, offensive tackle, or Mason Graham, defensive lineman. And that's that.
I think that's probably right. The only question I would have, and I'm curious as to how you feel about this, what if Hunter's there?
They won't do it.
No. Would you do it?
No.
No, I don't think I would either.
Me neither. I wouldn't either.
But he's too, like, that's a sexy name that I think a lot of people are going to be pissed about if they overlook him and take, like, a boring lineman.
Well, they might be able to trade if that happens, though.
Long story short, you people Talks about a lot of fun names. Weapons, all of this. You know what they're going to do? A bunch of fat guys up front.
If you like that clip, check out more videos from Felger and Mazz here. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.